Hello, hello. Hope everybody's doing well. Today we're going to be talking about the effects of the rise of big businesses and the rapid industrialization that occurs throughout the United States in the late 1800s and early 1900s. It's going to lead to an organization of labor and a lot of workplace reforms. And the reason why there's so many workplace reforms is mainly due to America and America's government being made aware that all of these factories and businesses throughout the United States are practicing a lot of unsafe practices. Right? They don't have things like fire drills in place in their factories and within their businesses. Okay? And a lot of times, you have what you see in this image here. You have children operating machines, right? And we see these children are very young and they're sent to work by their families because their families are struggling or desperate for money. We see children in these dangerous work settings standing on crates to operate dangerous machinery. They're in their bare feet because they can't afford shoes. And this led to a lot of children, getting their arms stuck in these machineries, getting a limb, like a leg, stuck in a machine and losing that leg. And a lot of children are even dying due to them not having a lot of experience and not knowing how to safely operate these machines in these factories. And the reason why these factory owners are going to hire children is because these children are going to be willing to work for a very, very low wage. Once again, a lot of them are going to be from immigrant families who are extremely poor, struggling to live a successful life in the United States. Okay. So if you take a moment to think about the pros and cons of child labor, well, the pros are these children are earning a wage, even if it's a very low wage, to help support their families. So their families can put food on the table for them and the rest of their family. Cons, well, what are these children missing out on? Where do you think these children should be? Right? Well, they're missing out on, one, their education. If they're in the factory, 5-6 days a week, they're not attending school. They're not learning. Okay, they're not learning how to read. They're not learning how to write. All right, and they're operating these dangerous machines that put them in harm's way of injuries. It's going to deprive them of their childhood. They don't get to go out and do social things and interact with other children. Okay. And a lot of the workers, not only children, just your average adult worker, in a lot of these factories and a lot of American businesses are being paid extremely low wages. They're having to work long hours. So some factories are going to pay their workers a very low wage to work over 40 hours a week, okay, longer than 8-hour days. So some of these factory owners are having their workers work, 10 to 14-hour shifts per day, some even longer than that. Okay? And factory workers are having their workers work for lower wages than factory workers can afford to pay them. So a lot of times factory workers can afford to pay their workers more, but they choose not to. So once workers are made aware of these types of things, they get really upset. Today, America has a policy that if you work over 40 hours a week for a company, you get paid time and a half. Okay, what do I mean by that? Well, if your wage is $10, for every hour you work over 40 hours a week, you get paid $15. So your normal wage plus half of it. So we talked about the unsafe working conditions. So they're not only unsafe for children in places like these textile mills like you see here, but also a lot of the textile factories are also dangerous, right? You have all these women working in very, very close quarters. A lot of these textile mills, they didn't have a fire evacuation plan like we have in all of our schools that we practice at least once a month. So if a building caught on fire, these women wouldn't know how to escape, right? Their managers wouldn't have a plan for evacuating everybody safely, right, if the building caught on fire. So that was a big, big problem. And some of these women, they were in really close quarters with one another working, as you can see if you look close at this image. If a woman, was operating a sewing machine and her elbow ran into the women next to her, that could cause the woman next to her to get her hand caught in the sewing machine, possibly, experience a severe injury to her arm, okay, possibly even losing her arm, depending on what type of machine workers are operating. Okay, so there were no safety regulations in any of these factories in the early 1900s and late 1800s. All right, that'll do it for our discussion today. So nice and short and sweet. We'll be talking about how workers begin to organize and advocate for fair wages and safer working conditions in our upcoming discussion. But until then, I'll see you next time. Enjoy the rest of your day.